Neo-slavery is the modern embodiment of slavery, but in some cases without physical bondage. Under a neo-slavery system, as with slavery, those designated as neo-slaves are valued only for their labor. The difference being, rather than forcibly required to work for free as with historic slavery, under neo-slavery those designated as neo-slaves are compensated but are paid substantially lower wages than those not designated as neo-slaves. Neo-slaves are also unofficially designated as second- or third-class citizens. Neo-slavery thrives behind a facade of laws and policies that, though outwardly appear neutral, are systematically and discriminatorily applied toward those designated as neo-slaves. This facade creates an illusion of equal rights and legality but in fact, as applied to neo-slaves, are unequal and illegal, at least from an international legal standard perspective. Countries engaging in neo-slavery often do so to bypass international law, crafting a facade of equal rights and equal justice under their internal law for the benefit of international reputation. In this video we will outline how neo-slavery and its deceptive legal, political, and social framework is applied toward African Americans in the U.S. Following the Civil War, neo-slavery began to emerge. Sharecropping, the enactment of black codes, and the establishment of Jim Crow laws were designed to circumvent the abolition of slavery, effectively denying African Americans their rights and tethering them to exploitative labor arrangements, cementing their status as second-class citizens. Over the years, this exploitation has been refined, adapting to circumvent evolving international legal standards. Today, neo-slavery is embedded within the systemic structures of the U.S., manifesting as economic oppression, legal and political disenfranchisement, and a pipeline leading directly to prison or military service. The employment market starkly illustrates the neo-slavery model, with African Americans disproportionately funneled into low-wage labor-intensive jobs. Systemic barriers have been strategically placed to limit their access to job security, benefits, or advancement opportunities. In professional realms, African Americans frequently encounter ceilings that block upward mobility, relegating them to entry-level positions despite possessing comparable or superior qualifications. Black people are systematically underpaid across all industry sectors in comparison with all other races. This persistent undervaluation of African American labor is not an anomaly but a deliberate facet of neo-slavery, reinforced by the intentional misapplication of laws and policies meant to foster equal opportunities in employment under affirmative action laws. The political arena has become a theater of exploitation, where African Americans' votes are sought with hollow promises of reform and inclusion. However, these promises never materialize into meaningful change, as the laws and policies, such as affirmative action, are manipulated to keep African Americans in a marginalized and subservient position in society. This exploitation is a calculated aspect of neo-slavery, where African Americans are mobilized for their electoral participation, yet their efforts at the polls serve to elect candidates who exploit their support and maintain, or even exacerbate their marginalization, effectively using black people as modern-day beasts of burden in the political landscape. In the U.S. military-industrial complex, second to white people, African Americans have the highest level of military participation, but in comparison to their percentage of U.S. society is disproportionately high. African Americans are also positioned in roles that guarantee higher exposure to combat and casualties. Despite serving in the military and being disproportionately placed on the front lines, and dying en masse for their country in battles starting as far back as the American Revolution, their sacrifices upon return are met with barriers to accessing veterans' benefits, compounded by systemic racial oppression and severe economic marginalization. This scenario further entrenches the long-held view, stemming from slavery, of African Americans as expendable labor, worthy of sacrifice but not of equal application under the law. Within the prison-industrial complex, African Americans are incarcerated at a rate more than 5 times that of white Americans, according to the NAACP. This stark disproportionality reflects their overrepresentation in a system that subjects them to longer sentences and harsher conditions. Contributing significantly through compulsory labor, often for little to no compensation, African Americans become an essential yet under-acknowledged cog in the prison economy. This forced labor, while legal under the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, is akin to forced slavery but falls under neo-slavery execution. Upon their release, the challenges for African Americans are compounded. They face systemic barriers to reintegration, including limited access to employment, voting rights, and housing, obstacles rooted in racial discrimination and economic disenfranchisement. Data from the Prison Policy Initiative highlights the severe implications of these barriers, with former inmates experiencing unemployment rates over 5 times higher than the general U.S. population. This systemic exploitation and marginalization underscore the expendability of African Americans and the categorization as cheap labor, reminiscent of their historical treatment as chattel. Neo-slavery targeting black people has become so ingrained in U.S. culture that it shapes societal views on African American worth, particularly among white people and other racial groups, fostering a belief that African Americans do not deserve better treatment and that African Americans are simply in existence for their service. This cultural normalization of exploitation and marginalization underpins the systemic racism that African Americans face daily. As white supremacy is becoming normalized in the U.S. and Europe, and as Africa becomes more occupied with Western militaries, African Americans must galvanize to fight for our freedom, our rights, and to keep ourselves safe. What do you think we should do if you are an African American? Here is what many of us are doing to forge a new future and give us options. With reparations, some may choose to stay in the U.S. and hope for the best, while others may choose to return to the land of our forefathers and start a new life there. Without reparations, the vast majority of African American people will remain trapped in the U.S. A significant movement is gaining momentum in the United States, focusing on a critical issue. African Americans are committed to casting their votes exclusively for the Democratic candidate nominated for the U.S. presidential election who pledges to sign an executive order for reparations within the first week of taking office, preferably no later than the week of January 6, 2025. Should the nominated Democratic candidate fail to commit to reparations, African Americans are prepared to collectively abstain from voting in the 2024 presidential elections. It is imperative to emphasize that African Americans will not support any candidate who refuses to endorse an executive order for reparations by January 2025. If the demand for reparations is ignored or if Congress rescinds the Democratic executive order for reparations, African Americans will initiate further mass boycotts targeting corporations and the U.S. military. To comprehend the underlying reasons behind this movement, we strongly recommend watching a video entitled, Reparations: Should African Americans Boycott the 2024 Elections in Return for Their Vote? This video provides an accurate depiction of African American history, tracing it from the post-slavery era to the present day. It vividly illustrates how both Republicans and Democrats have repeatedly collaborated to make promises to African Americans during election campaigns, only to renege on those promises once they secured the African American vote. In response to this systemic exploitation and the rise of normalized white supremacy, African Americans are embarking on this movement. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos on the African American reparations movement and to watch videos on African and African diaspora geopolitics, politics, news, history, religion, and economics.